Hey y'all, what's going on? This is J Marie Booklets. Today I'm making a video about notifying the staff of admissions, discharges, transfers to and from and returning patients. So there will be times every day, this is something you do every day, where you will be getting admissions from ER or direct admit. You will get returning patients, so patients who go down for procedures come back, patients who are transferred to or from your department, and or discharges. This is something that you would do every day. Now you may not get them all every day, but you will do this pretty much. You might do some every day and some a few days a week or whatever, but this is something you would do. So the first is admission, and that's when you will get the nurse will get a patient from ER or, like I say, a direct admit. And usually it goes, when I worked on the main floor, they used to do it. We had an area called the bed placement, and they would call and say, hey, we need a bed for this type of patient. So they would give the charge nurse the name of the patient, the diagnosis, the age, the requesting doctor, and something else. And so it was the name, age, and the sex, so if they were male or female, and that way so they can put them in a bed. Because at this time, a long time ago, the rooms were semi-private. Some rooms were private and some rooms were semi-private. So if they were semi-private, then they would, if a female was already in one bed, they would put them in the second bed if it was another female. So that eventually changed because the hospital went to electronic system, and all the rooms became private. So the rooms all became private, and then they went to electronic system, and they just had it where it was the first available bed. And so, like, this area, it wasn't the bed placement anymore, but it kind of was. They would put the patient in the bed, so there was really no need to call. But when they used to do it, they would call, ask for a bed, and then we would write out the information, the gender, the sex, the name, the gender, how old they were, the requesting doctor, and the diagnosis. And then we would give the slip. We would give one part to the nurse and the other part to the charge nurse. One part to the nurse, other part to the CNA. So let the nurse know you're getting the patient. This is diagnosis, and so they get a heads up that you got a patient coming. And then we would give a slip to the CNA so that they can make sure the room is ready and get prepared also. And on the main floor, the charge nurse used to take report and then tell the nurse, but like everywhere else, the nurse would take the report. So I don't know why it was like that, but that floor was just the way it was. It did a lot of things differently. And so, and that was it. Same thing when a patient was returning. So let's say a patient went down for a procedure and they were coming back, they wouldn't call and say, we need a bed, because the patient already has a bed there. But the doctor would put an order in, and that's how we knew, because we were usually the first line that the patient was coming back, because the doctor or the nurse down in like OR or wherever will put an order in to resume the diet, things like that. So we will see that first, so we would know that patient is coming back. But sometimes the nurse, like the recovering nurse, would call to give report, and then and then we would transfer it to the nurse, and then they would take report to see how the surgery or the procedure went, things like that. But sometimes we saw it first, because we would see those orders come in, like to resume diet, because usually the patient was NPO for the procedure, so resume diet, certain things, just all kind of things that we will see, because they will put the order in and then they will call. But like I said, sometimes they call first. So same thing, you give the phone to that's how the nurse knows. So you can either tell them that the patient is coming, or if they call to give report, that's how the nurse knows. And then usually the CNA, they'll notify the CNA that the patient is coming back, just so in case they need help to put the patient back in the bed, things like that. And then the third is transferring patients to or from. So if a patient is on another floor and they're being transferred to your unit, so the doctor puts in a transfer order. So let's say they're in the ICU and they're good and they can transfer out of the ICU to another floor, then you will see that first. So when I worked in the ICU, we, once the patients were good enough to be transferred, we would transfer them to whatever floor. Usually it was our sister floor, but sometimes they went over. It just all depends what was going on. And so we would see the order. The doctor would put the order in. We can notify the nurse, but the ICU was small, so they kind of knew. It just all depends. The nurse could have been in another room. So we will see, and then I will start doing what I do, is getting the charts ready to be transferred. But like I said, we really didn't do too much because the patient is being... Oh, wait a minute. I confused myself. I was talking about transfer to, so the patient being transferred to another unit. So we wouldn't do too much because the patient is going to another floor. We just get the chart ready. The nurse will call and see, now I'm talking about transfer from. I confused myself. So okay, let me talk about transferring to. So let's say a patient is being transferred to the ICU. Let's say they were on another floor and they were going down. The doctor will put in an order, but like with us, we had our sister floor, and sometimes they would be coming from there. Sometimes they would come from the other side of the hospital, but they had their own ICU. But it all depended on what was going on. So if they came, if they were like not doing good on our sister floor, they will put a transfer order in to transfer them to the ICU. And basically basically this is like the charge nurse. This is something, because their charge nurse may call our charge nurse, their charge nurse call, that's how we did it. But they're supposed to call down to like the bed placement type people, and then they were supposed to call and get us a bed, and call and ask for a bed, or they will put the patient in the queue in the electronic system, and then we would go ahead and work that out. The charge nurse will work that out. We didn't have a CNA in the ICU, so I would go ahead and, it was a transfer, so I really wouldn't get the chart ready because I'm going to take their chart. But I would, once they got to us, I would print out the face sheets, and because I always put new face sheets and labels on ours. But I would notify the nurse. Usually the ICU charge nurse notified the nurse, or I could. It just all depends. It just all depends what was going on. But usually when a patient's being transferred to you, it's usually, like, if it's an emergency, it's charge nurse to charge nurse. So like I said, in the ICU and our sister floor, they communicated, but technically it was their charge nurse calling down saying, hey, I need a bed, and then putting the patient in our queue, and then a bed being assigned to them. But we didn't operate like that. The charge nurse will speak to each other, because that's how it was. If we had a code, they would come down and assist us with a code. They had a code, our charge nurse would go up there. So it was camaraderie. Our two floors, who were sister floors, so they worked together, and they worked together real good. But technically the procedure was to call and request a bed. And then when a patient is being transferred to, so like when we would transfer a patient up, we would do the same thing. We would put in, the doctor would write in the order, transfer patient, to wherever. And usually they put where they want the patient to go. So they transfer the patient to, and then it would go in the system. Because the system automatically, once the doctor put the order in, when they went to the electronic system, once they put it in, it would go in the queue on that floor. And then they would, once they got a bed, we could see. So once that patient was put in a bed on the other floor, so they were in the queue and then they were assigned a bed. Once they were assigned a bed, we could see it on our floor. So it would tell us that patient, it would pop up that patient, room, 1, 2, 3, 4. And so then we would know, okay, we can call report. So the chart, we will let the charge nurse know. I could see it, because everybody could see it. Like, if our patient was going anywhere, we could see where they were going. So even though they were assigned a bed on that floor, we could see it on our floor. And so we would let the nurse know, and then they would call report and things like that. That's how it went, and that's how they did with us. If they needed a bed with us, they would call down and get report to the nurse. But like I said, yeah, the only floor that the charge nurse took report was that other floor. That was just, I don't know why they did it, but I guess just to know what was going on. And then the last is discharges. So discharge usually works where a doctor comes in, they discharge a patient, and then they go see the patient, and then they say, okay, they're good enough, they can go, and they'll write the discharge order. Now sometimes they'll tell the patient, because the patient is like ready to go, and they'll be like, okay, we're gonna discharge you today, and like before the doctor is even out the room and at the nurse's station to put the order in, the patient is already on the light saying, hey, the doctor said I can be discharged. Like, they ready to go. I'm like, you gotta slow down, it's not how it works. We gotta do what we do. So once the doctor puts the order in, and now usually patients know, usually you kind of know who can probably go home today. That was always one of the things that I would ask. Like, I will always stay on top of that, who can be discharged today, because that's how I control my day. I always talk about controlling your day. There are some things you can control, some things you can't control, but some you can. So one of the things I will always ask is who could be discharged today, just so I can get a mental note of, if we have 23 patients and 10 could possibly be discharged, then that's 13 patients. Okay, staff may go home. How's the ER looking? Maybe we can fill that back up. It's just all about just give you an idea on what's going on in the hospital. So I was always on top of who can be discharged today. And so once the doctor puts the order in, so like everyone pretty much knows who could probably go home today. The nurses know, the patients know they're probably gonna be going home today. If the lab results are okay, they can probably go home today. So once the doctor puts the order in to discharge patient home, then you notify the nurse. And like ours, it was on the board, but like the nurse would be all over the place, but we can see it will turn a certain color. And you would notify the nurse, and so the nurse can go ahead and get the med rec printed out and discharge paperwork and take out any IVs or anything that need to be taken out of the patient. And some of that stuff the CNA could do, so they would have the CNA do it. And then pretty much the only thing that CNA really did, like they might get them dressed, and if they could pull out IVs and stuff, they would do that, get them dressed, and then wheel them down. Some floors the CNAs wheeled down, and some floors we had like volunteers who would come get the patients. So when I worked in the ICU, we really didn't have discharges, but like we did every now and then, but either the nurse or the charge nurse or myself would take them down. On our sister floor, the CNAs always took them down, always wheel the patient to their car. But on the other side of the hospital, they have volunteers. Why the volunteers never came to the other side, I never know. Why, I don't know. But we always just did our own, and so they would take them down, and that's how discharge goes. So you would notify the nurse of admission, a transfer to, transfer from, a returning patient, or discharge. So those are the 4 reasons why you would notify a nurse. And I think those are probably about the 4. And that, like I said, those are something you would do every day. You might not do them all every day, but you're gonna do them every day. So when I worked on the main floor, I did all of those every day. We always had patients going down for procedures, surgery. We always had patients transferring to our floor. We always had admissions. We always had discharges. And when I went over to the ICU, we would have admissions. We might have patients having heart attacks, or patients going for procedure, going for surgery. we would always have patients transferring to, so they weren't doing good and on another floor, and they were being transferred to us. We would always transfer patients out, and sometimes we would discharge patients. And then on our sister floor, it was admissions, direct admits, discharges, transfers to, from, and returning patients. And they probably had more returning patients because they did a lot of procedures, and they would like a lot of, because that's where they would go. So like, say a patient was having a procedure done, they would go to our sister floor. Like, if let's say they were in the hospital and they need to have a procedure done, because it was two ORs, so it was like 2 ICUs. I was in one ICU, it was the main ICU, and then it was the main OR, and then we had our own OR. And so they would be there, and then they would go down for a procedure. And now if they went and had surgery, they would come to us. They wouldn't go back. But if they had a procedure done, they could possibly go back to their room. And then some people came in for the procedure. So like I had a procedure done there, and I came in. I walked in for my appointment and had the procedure done, and they were gonna admit me, but then they was like, well, we really don't need to admit her. Let's just watch her, and then discharge her. So I was discharged from there. Originally, that's how it was going to be. I was going to go in, had a procedure, and then be discharged. But, well, no, I think originally I was going to go in, had a procedure, and then stay a night. But because they never had to do the procedure, I talk about it in another video. They never had to do the procedure, and so they talked about admitting me anyway. But then they was like, we really don't have to, because we tried to do the procedure and we didn't have to. Like, I was on the table and everything, but it just didn't work out, which is a good thing. And so I was discharged. But there are times where a patient will come in for a procedure and then need a bed, so that's why they would get an admission. So that is considered I don't know how they would consider that because the patient was admit, but I guess it would be an admission, because that was considered like an outpatient. I was considered an outpatient. Just like when you go to the ER, you're not a patient, you're like an outpatient. It's just totally separate. It's like a outpatient. So I guess it would be considered a full admission, because you really don't have a diet. You really don't have a doctor. I mean, it's the specialist that's doing it, not you don't have a attending physician. So yeah, I guess it would be considered an admission. I guess because they had did most of the work for us, we never looked at it differently. But yeah, I guess that would be considered admission, because you had to get a diet. You had to get a attending doctor. So yeah, they had a lot of admissions every day, and they had a lot of returning patients every day, and they had a lot of discharges every day on our sister floor. The main floor really didn't have. I mean, they would send patients to procedures and surgeries, but they usually didn't come back. It was the med surge floor, but they usually went to the other floor. Sometimes they would come back, but sometimes they went to the other floor, and because that was surgery, and then they had an overflow. They had a sister floor that would take some of the overflow from them. So it was what it was, because like once they left out of a bed, man, they filled them beds up. It was no joke, because it was the med surge floor. They need beds, and so if you ain't going back, you out of there, and they will fill that bed up. But that's about it. So you would notify the nurse and the CNA of an admission, direct admit, transfer to, transfer from, a returning patient, and a discharge. All right, y'all, this is J. Marie, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.